Hello and welcome back. This afternoon's edition of Ferguson Library presents online technology classes. Today we're going to be basic Microsoft PowerPoint. So thank you everybody who's joining here. So some things kind of go on with the stream. Hopefully today we will not have some. Yesterday I had internet hiccup about an hour stream. So I was able to kind of solve that there. The recording for yesterday's stream, if you did miss it, is up on the YouTube channel now, as well as Tuesday's stream. So yesterday we did basically sell. Today we're looking at Microsoft PowerPoint. So during the course of this class, if you have questions, please post it in the chat on the YouTube channel. What you're seeing is a little bit delayed from when I'm presenting. So when you ask the question, I may already down for a bit. I do see your questions and comments, and I will get to them when I feel there's a good time to stop and kind of questions. But feel free to ask the questions. Just don't kind of keep spamming the question until you get. As we go through the class, I'm going to demonstrate things here in the on the live stream here in the channel. And then I will give you 3 to 4 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes at certain points to go and actually practice the skills yourself in your own PowerPoint. So in order to kind of follow along with the exercises, you will need your own version of Microsoft Office computers. To start off, you will want to go and download the handouts and the images that we'll be using for these exercises. So the handouts, the links for everything is right up here above my head. Actually, is the address to go to. You want to go to fergusonlibrary.org/online-tech-classes, and what you'll see when you get there is going to be this. So this will be the page here, the online technology class resources. We have our schedule of upcoming class schedule here. You can see for the 2 classes that we've already had this week here, I've linked to the recordings, so you can go back and watch those if you want to cover basic Microsoft Word and basic Excel. As we scroll down, we're going to have the section here with handouts. You'll want to click on the tab for basic Microsoft PowerPoint, and in here there will be 3 different kind of links that you want to pay attention to. First here is the handout, and so when you click this here, it will open up a PDF that will look like this. This will be the handout that we're using for the class currently. It's 2 pages. So the first page just kind of gives you a kind of a brief introduction as well as kind of a reference to the ribbon, which we'll be going over when we start covering the class, and then the exercises that we'll be following. Here, the second link here, there's not an image with this here, but this big kind of like these 3 lines right here, or however it looks on your computer here and such, is a link to the images that we'll be using through the course of this exercise. And when you click on it, it will open up this page here. And so there are, looks like 8 images uploaded here from a recent trip I did to Washington, D.C. In order to download these images to your computer, what you'll want to do is you'll want to click on the image. So it loads up in this kind of like black gray window. So this is the full image here. And then you're going to right click and you're going to choose Save Image As on your, you're going to click Save Image As. And then you're going to save it to a place in your on your computer that you'll be able to easily find it. You can save it to the desktop. You're going to want to do that for, and then hit the back button on your browser to go back to this window here. You'll want to do this here for 4, 5, 6 of the images, or all of them if you want. Overall, we're going to just kind of use them to kind of play around with how we add images into our PowerPoint presentation. So that is the kind of logistics of how this is going to work. If you have any questions, again, feel free to ask in the chat. Now what we're going to do is I just want to kind of quickly kind of go over kind of what we're going to be covering through the course of this class here. This is very basic Microsoft PowerPoint. You'll experience with PowerPoint or Word or Excel in order to take this class. We're going to be covering things like how to open, save, and create new PowerPoint presentations. Looking at, once you have a new PowerPoint presentation open, how to start creating new slides, how to add text and images to that slide, how to change the design of all of your slides, or even just the design of the slide that you're working on. And then finally, we're going to look at how to play the slideshow. So we're going to look at kind of some very basic skills in Microsoft PowerPoint. Next week, next Thursday from 2 to 4, the same time as class. I'm going to be doing an intermediate PowerPoint class that will look at a little bit more advanced skills in PowerPoint, things like animations and transitions, and we'll take a look at the presenter view. Today, we're just covering some of the very basics when it comes to working with PowerPoint. So with that, let us, if there's any questions, feel free to ask them. I'll get to them, but we are going to jump into PowerPoint itself and do kind of a quick tour of the interface, kind of make you familiar with when you open up PowerPoint, where are you, how do you get started, and get working on it. Here, and I'm in demo mode. Yep. So this, when you first open up PowerPoint, this is generally what you will see. For reference, I am using PowerPoint 365 or PowerPoint Desktop here on my computer. This is very similar to the to PowerPoint 2016 or PowerPoint 2019. So everything you see, if you have PowerPoint 2016 or PowerPoint 2019, it should be very close to what you're seeing here. If you're looking at, if you're using an earlier version, PowerPoint 2010, PowerPoint 2015, a lot of it is still going to be the same. There might be some slight differences. If something comes up like that there where I'm describing or demonstrating something that you can't find in your own PowerPoint, ask me in the chat, and I will then we'll kind of figure out kind of where it is to kind of get you back onto the track that we're here. With that said, when we first load up PowerPoint, we're in what they call the Backstage View. So all the Office programs have what they call their Backstage View. This is kind of where you kind of launch into your program. You can see over here on the left, we have our kind of menu toolbar here with the home, the new, and the open. These here do exactly what they recommend. The home is kind of the home page. This is when you first load up. This is like when you load up your browser and it loads up to your home page on your browser. This is where everything kind of starts and launches. The new is where you're able to kind of easily create a new PowerPoint presentation. Most cases, when you jump in, you're going to come up right up here to the top where it says blank presentation, and you're going to double click on that there just to start with a blank presentation, unless you want to use kind of one of the templates that Microsoft Office has designed and has made available to Office. My templates might look different than what you have, again, because I'm using Office 365, and certain things come along with the subscription that I paid for that there. But there will be templates available. You can search online. You can also go onto Google and search PowerPoint templates, and they will download. But we're not going to cover using templates in this class here. We're going to look at just starting with a blank, bare presentation and kind of building up and designing it from there. Open obviously allows you to open up a PowerPoint you have created on before, or that somebody has sent you that you want to take a look at. We're going to go back here to the home, and you can see on the home we have our blank presentation. So you have actually the home also gives us some quick access to some of the things that that we get in the other two menu options over here. So we get access to the new tools here, so being able to go to blank presentation without having to click new and go to blank presentation, as well as some of your recently opened files to be able to open them. So you're able to, if you start working on something and you're done for the day, you close it. Next day, you open up PowerPoint, you're able to jump right back to where you left off from before. So with that, we're going to now double click on blank presentation to open up a new blank presentation. At this point, if you look at the handout that you downloaded from the website, this is what it will look like here. I kind of showed this briefly on there and such. We're going to go over the ribbon here in just a second, but we're also, what we're doing here is we're going to be doing this open a new PowerPoint. We're doing this first exercise already, open a new PowerPoint slideshow. To give you a sense of where we are kind of. We're going to double click again on blank presentation, and this will now open up our standard editor we have in PowerPoint. So some things to kind of keep in mind when you look at this here. This main center box here that we're looking at, this is the editor view, or the editor in which you're going to be able to work on your current slide that you're working on. And the slide that you're currently working on, it's hard to see actually. You can see. You can see down here in the bottom corner, down here, it says slide 1 of 1. So this actually tells you what number slide you're working on and how many slides that you have available. Back. So this is the current slide that you're working on. Whenever you open up PowerPoint, the default PowerPoint presentation, the default thing that it opens up to is to add a title slide. That's why we see here this click to add title, click to add subtitle. These here are just preset placeholders for putting in a title and a subtitle. To the left of the editor, we have the it's actually called, it's the slide view, or kind of like your table of contents of your slides as you're created. So as we create more slides, they'll all show up here in order. And one of the nice things about the slide view is that you can make a slide, and if you decide you want to make a new slide, you make a new slide down there, and suppose you have 4 or 5 slides there, and you make a new slide and it's way down here at the bottom, but you decide, hey, you want that to actually show up after the second slide, you're able to actually click and drag it. And we're going to take a look at that later on as we're kind of putting together our slideshow. Over on the right, this is something that I know I have here in Office 365. I'm not too certain if it shows up in Office 2016 or Office 2019. But it does start giving you design ideas, and it'll give you kind of some templates to kind of make something look a little bit kind of shiny or kind of cool with some nice images and fonts. So if you're looking for inspiration on how you're going to do your presentation, you can kind of scroll through here and kind of see what they look like. In this case, we're actually not going to use it there because I'm just going to close this side box over here, and we're just going to have our editor window. Now, the other very important part of the window that we're working on here is right up here on the top, and this is called the ribbon. This is the standard navigation for Microsoft Office since Office 2007. So it's been about 2007 came out in 2006. It's been about 14 years that they've put the ribbon into there as their kind of main navigation and interface for working in Office. So if you've done any work in Microsoft Word or Excel, you're probably familiar with how the ribbon works. But in the handout, there is a kind of a brief kind of like overview of kind of the different parts of the ribbon. So they talk about how each tab is divided into groups. So we have different tabs up here at the top. We have the home, the insert, the draw, design. You can see if I click on it, it will change what's showing up on the ribbon. Back to the home. Each tab is divided into different groups that kind of collect the different tools that you have together. You're going to spend most of your time in PowerPoint working in the home tab and like the insert tab. Those are going to be the two that you're going to spend your most time as you're building things in PowerPoint. Older versions of PowerPoint, I don't think have a design tab. I think the design was folded into other areas on there. That might be the difference. If you're looking at Office 2010 or Office 2013, that tab may not exist on your Office, in your PowerPoint. But so each of these different groups contain different sets of tools, kind of all kind of connected together. So we have things like our clipboard, so our copy and paste functions here. Our slide tools, these are where you're able to kind of create new slides and kind of organize the slides and decide kind of things like the layouts. And I'll show you that there when we start creating new slides. Our font controls, this is the exact same font control box, or very similar font control box to what you get in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel. Microsoft was like, hey, we've designed this already for Microsoft Word. Why should it be any different here in PowerPoint? I mean, they do add some different things like being able to character spacing and things that are more useful in PowerPoint than they are in Word. But the tools and how they work are generally the same as they are for Word. We have our paragraph functions. Again, another area, if you're familiar with the paragraph sets in Microsoft Word, these here work and behave in a very similar fashion. Drawings, being able to easily do shapes that you may want to put onto your presentation. Editing, your find and replace. Not as useful as they are in Microsoft Word because usually PowerPoint presentations are a lot smaller than Word documents are, and there aren't as many words or anything, so you can kind of quickly scan through it and find what you're looking for rather than in like a Word document where it might be more difficult to find something else. Some other commonly used area, the insert. This is where the insert tab on here has a bunch of different areas. This is where you find all the different pieces that you put into assemble your PowerPoint slides in your slideshow. So most slides are made up of things like graphics and text. So you have your images over here, being able to import in different images, and then things like text, being able to create like a text box, header and footers, and kind of different kind of information, text information slide. These are the ones that we're going to look at during this class. We're not going to kind of look at any of the other stuff on here, just so it's, but they are available there. And I do encourage you, as you leave this class and you continue to practice and play around with Microsoft PowerPoint, go in and try to see what all these different kind of things do. It can't hurt to experiment. Try to find out what they do. so that you become more familiar with all the different things that PowerPoint can offer. The other tab that's commonly used here is our design. Well, at least in these later versions of Office, is the design tab. This is where you're able to look at the entire design or the design of your entire slideshow. So you can make everything kind of look similar and kind of line up and match. We're going to be looking at this later on in the class. And then finally, we're going to look here at the slideshow tab. And this is where you're actually able to play and start working on things like presenting your slides. When you say, or you're going to a presentation, you have it set up on a computer, you open up your presentation in PowerPoint, this is where you'll come to start the presentation and be able to present. That's what we're going to be looking at the class. So any questions on anything that I've covered so far? And other than that, we will actually then get in starting to make some slides following our exercises on the handout. I'm going to wait a bit just to see if the stream catches up to where I'm at right now to see if there's any questions before I start. And then we'll start going in, and we'll be starting with actually probably exercise 2 because we've already done exercise 1, open PowerPoint slide. Sipping my a cue to see when the stream matches up. So also during this pause is a good time to go and download the images if you need them, because we'll be starting. All right. Doesn't seem like there's any questions yet, so we're going to start working on creating a show here. So the first thing that we want to do when we've opened up, we're in this first slide, which is, as I mentioned, is a kind of default title slide. And it comes in with kind of these 2 pre-built placeholders for title and subtitle. So the first thing that we're going to do, actually, we're going to click where it says click to add title. Kind of straightforward. And you'll notice that the click to add title disappears, and we now end up with kind of a box with our flashing cursor. And in there, we are going to type my trip to Washington, D.C. I was trying to figure out kind of something to do for an exercise, and I realized I had like a bunch of photos from a trip I did to Washington, D.C. last summer, before we all trapped here in our homes. And I figured they would be kind of a good set of it, and we're gonna kind of do like a photo essay of some photos of Washington D.C. just to kind of have the basics of putting in text and graphics into our PowerPoint presentation. So once I've typed that in, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna click to add subtitle. I'm gonna click on that again. You can see now that disappears, as well as the box that happened around the title, because now this is kind of set. So now this disappears, and I'm going to type a photo essay by, and I'm going to put my name. You're welcome to put your name. You could put my name in here. You can put whatever you want in this step here. And so now we have basically this blank slide that says my trip to Washington to see a photo essay. Don't worry about it appearing kind of plain right now. We're going to look at design and everything later on. This is one of my tips when you start working with Microsoft PowerPoint, is go in there and get your content in actually a very simple fashion where you're not being distracted by the colors in the background or the colors of your font or what font you're using. Go in, type right on this black on white, put things in, put in your images, get things arranged. Then once you have everything in place, then you can go and you can start tweaking with the design. Because that way then you can actually see how your design affects all the different content, because it can be a pain to like choose a design, go put in something into PowerPoint, and then realize that it clashes or it just doesn't work because maybe something designed in the background is getting cut off or it distracts from trying to present. So get your content in there, and then you can start playing with the design. So that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be putting some content in, and then we're going to play around with the design slides. So now if we've entered in a title and a subtitle into there, we're going to want to go to our next slide. This will be the first slide when we're standing up presenting this before a crowd of our friends, saying, oh, this is my trip to Washington. Oh, and okay, and so if you've made a mistake or you want to go back and change, all you need to do is just click on the in the text there and such. You get your cursor, you can kind of then click over to where you want to change, and then delete or backspace and type in your correction. Uh, PowerPoint is I find in a lot of ways, at least for me, it's very intuitive to use. Things just kind of happen the way that you expect them to happen. In fact, in some ways, it's a little bit easier to use for certain tasks than things like Microsoft Word is. PowerPoint is a lot of fun to kind of go in and play around with. So I encourage that after this class, get in there and just kind of fun, play around with different things, see what kind of different images you can put in. But yeah, so now we have our first slide. We have our title slide here. Now we'll want to create our second slide. And so we can do that by coming up here to our ribbon, and we have a new slide button. Now, you notice part of working in the ribbon is that part of the interface of the ribbon is that there's a couple different ways that these buttons up here work. One of the ways is, if you notice, when I have my mouse over a new slide here and I move it up and down, there's actually two different buttons here. There's this top button here, which will just, if I click it, it by default just adds in a new slide. Like if I go click it, it went in and added a new slide, and you can see this here, this slide came with placeholders with title and place for text on there. But if I move my button down to my mouse down to the second part of this button, the bottom part of the button there, and I click on it there and such, I get this little menu that opens that gives me actually a variety. It gives me 9 different layouts of the slides. So depending on kind of what you're doing with your presentation and how you're presenting on different slides, you may want to do different layouts and kind of show different information on each slide. So when I clicked just the top new slide button, it gave me this title and content slide layout here. But if I wanted to, I could have had a section header. I could have had title only. This title slide up here in the top left was the one that we just started off with here. So you can kind of see the little preview. There's that top box. There's that bottom box. So there's our top box. There's our bottom box there. My preference, simply because I don't like to be kind of bound by the placeholders and everything that they're putting into PowerPoint there and such, my preference is to come down and just click the blank slide. I like to work with blank slides and kind of do my own design. I just feel I have more flexibility. And so that's what we're going to be doing here, actually. We're going to come up, repeat this again, we're going to come up here to the new slide button, and we're going to click on the bottom part where the words say new slide and have this word pointing arrow. Click on this, and I'm going to come down and I'm going to click on blank. What this does is this gets me a nice blank white slide that I can then put whatever I want onto it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give everybody just a little bit of time to go in and make sure that you've entered in your title for My Trip to Washington, D.C. and a photo essay by your name, and then create a new slide. I'll give you about 2 minutes for that there, and then we'll continue on working in the slide. Have any questions, please ask them in the chat. Okay, so everybody created their title slide and then created a new slide here. So the next thing that we're going to look at is how to start inserting content into our PowerPoint slides. And so the first thing we're going to insert in is we're going to insert a picture. We're going to do that by coming up here to the Insert tab. There's a reason why it's called the Insert tab, because this is things. And we're going to come down and we're just going to include pictures. This is going to be probably one of the most common activities that you do in PowerPoint. Insert pictures, and when you do that, it will then open up a your typical Windows File Explorer window here, in which you're able to then browse to where you want to pictures. In this case, save these. Okay, so yeah, so I save these pictures. So what we're going to do is we're going to browse to the pictures that we downloaded from the website. We're going to browse the pictures that we did from this link here on the technology class website. These pictures here, and what I want you to do is I want you to select actually this tall picture of the Washington. So I'm here. It is. So yeah, so I want this tall one here. It should be the first picture that you download on. Have the if they're all arranged kind of by that first. So we're going to select that, and I'm going to click Insert. And what it'll do is it will insert the picture in. It will automatically size the picture to best fit the size of the slide that you have. So you can see now it's stretched from top to bottom on this slide. Mine also opened up some more design ideas, because what this will do actually now is this will actually give me develop a design for my entire slideshow from this one image. It's kind of a neat thing to do. I recommend going in and playing around with it when you have the opportunity, if your office gives you that feature. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell me to stop suggesting ideas, because I have my own ideas. I'm going to do what I want to do. So once I've inserted the picture, you can see it's kind of big. It kind of dominates the slide. And if I wanted to present this just as it is, I could. But we have a lot of flexibility with how this slide gets shown and presented in PowerPoint. So when I click on it, here, you'll notice now I have these six little handles. We are called handles. These little dots located around the outside of the image. And what these handles allow me to do is they allow me to resize the image. So if I move my mouse up to this top right corner, this top right dot up there, and such, you'll notice that my mouse goes from being an arrow here to being this kind of diagonally directed arrow pointing in diagonal arrows pointed in two different directions. And what that's telling me is this is something I can interact with and resize. Those are little clues that tell me what I can do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to actually then kind of move my photo down to a smaller size. I'll make it about 2 size. I chose the corner one here. You could have chosen either of the 4 corners. I chose the corners because if I had chosen one of the sides or the tops, see what happens when I drag this into the side one instead. I can't move it up and down. It doesn't resize up and down. It sizes it left and right. And what it does is it kind of stretches the image. So now we have a fat Washington. Or I can make it to be a very skinny Washington Monument. But that wasn't what I want to do. I want to keep the Washington Monument presenting the way that it's supposed to be. Same thing if I had grabbed the top. If I had grabbed the top, I could squish it, and now it's kind of a very short, stubby Washington Monument, or it's a very tall, skinny one. Those aren't things that I want. Therefore, I use the corners, the diagonal corners, to kind of keep what they call the aspect ratio of the image. So once we have this here, I now want to move this. I don't want this sitting in the middle here on the bottom of the screen. So if I click and drag the image, I can actually go and put this anywhere I want. This is one of the beauties of PowerPoint and designing something. A lot of people go in and they want to design something, say like a flyer or like a sheet flyer, like a single sheet flyer or something with like images. They want to do that in Microsoft Word. And it doesn't always work that well in Microsoft Word, because Microsoft Word is designed for words, for maybe putting images next to words, but the way that Microsoft Word works is generally with text, with words in there. PowerPoint is a very visual piece of software, so it has a lot more flexibility about where things can go. Nothing's locked into one place. You're not bound by where the text is or where the cursor is. I can put this anywhere on this page onto this slide. It really doesn't matter. For sometimes PowerPoint ends up being a very good thing. In fact, a good example is if I go back to my view here, this background that I've created on this view here, I actually just created in PowerPoint. It was easy. It was easier to do it than to do it in image editing program. I was able to pop this open. I was able to background, put in like the logo and everything around, just the way that I wanted it to do, and then I saved it as an image. So PowerPoint has a little bit more flexibility beyond just using slideshows. That's getting a little bit beyond what this class is supposed to go back to PowerPoint, go back to Move. So when I move this image, one of the things to notice as I move it around, let me see. Okay, so as I move it down to here, notice this dotted line that moves across the screen. So what this is this is a guide that is in Microsoft PowerPoint that tells me that the center of my image, so the center line of my image, where these dots are, these dots here mark the center of the image, matches with the center of the slide. So what this means is that my slide, the amount of space above my image and the amount of space below my image is exactly the same. So it's a nice guide to know, okay, so this is the center of the slide and everything's kind of centered. If I move it to the right, you can see, if I move it over to here, now you'll notice I have this cross of images, top going up and down, and I have one going left and right. This tells me that right now my image is actually centered into the middle of the slide. It's not centered in my screen because of my toolbar or my slide bar over here, but it's centered on the slide. And so these guides are you can notice actually if I move it over this way here, it will show up again. And what this does is this tells me that the right side of my image is aligned with the center of the slide, which is very useful when you, if you're doing things like a two-part slide or something. And so what I can do actually is what I want to do is I want to take this over to the left side of my slide here. And I want to have it centered. I want to have it centered up and down because I want to keep it, I want to have this line show up across the middle of my slide. And, you know, we'll put it about that far. This one here, I'm kind of eyeballing how far away I want it from the image. And I'm going to put the image there. So that's our first put into PowerPoint, kind of in line. If I wanted to, I can click and move it. If I didn't want that move, just like in Word and Excel, PowerPoint has a very useful undo feature. So if you accidentally say click something and drag it that you didn't mean to and it's in the wrong place, don't panic. Don't try to move it again to try to figure out that place that you had it before. Just come right up here to the top of your window. You can kind of see where I'm kind of moving my mouse up here in the top left. There's this little like left pointing curved arrow. And if I put my mouse over it, it says undo move object. So if I click on that, what it'll do is undo the last action it did. And you can kind of walk back through a lot of different actions that you did. So I could move back so I went all the way back to when I actually did not add forward again. Okay, so get back to where I was before. So now I have this image here. So yeah, so if you do something during the course of this class or when you're working in PowerPoint and you make a change that you didn't really mean to, go do the undo. Undo is also available with the keyboard shortcut Control-Z. So what you can do is you can hold down the Control key on your keyboard, which is usually in the bottom left corner of your keyboard, and then hit the Z key. Z is in zebra. And that will also do undo. So that's kind of, it's good to make that part of your muscle memory when you're working with anything in Microsoft Office actually, is that if you make a mistake or something, don't panic, pause, take a breath, and hit Control-Z or hit the undo and get on with what you're doing. There's no need to panic over changes in Microsoft Office. So now that we have one image added in, let's add in a second image. We have a second image in our collection of, if I go back here and take a look, there's a second image here also of the Washington Monument. This is one that I shot from the Lincoln Memorial, and it just happened to be an incredible thunderstorm. I almost got drenched walking up the reflecting pond there. There's a story behind this picture. So here I was sheltered in the Lincoln Memorial, and this rainbow showed up. It was a great shot. I mean, I could not resist getting this picture. But we're going to use this picture here on our slide. I'm getting off track. Sorry about that. It's too easy when I don't have a class in front of me to keep me on track. So once again, I'm going to come up here to my Insert tab, and I'm going to click Pictures again. Pictures. And I'm going to look at it. So now it will remember the place where I saved all the pictures. Go browse to it again. And I'm going to select the second picture, which is going to be the second picture I want to use, which is the third picture in the list. And I'm going to come down and click Insert. And what it'll do is it will drop the picture, and you can see it covers up everything. Remember before when we added in the picture of the Washington Monument before, it automatically fit the picture to the full height of the slide. But because it was a kind of a tall, skinny picture, it kept the sides empty. It didn't want to stretch. It wanted to keep what they called the aspect ratio of the picture the same. Now this picture, because it's rectangular, it can fit into the slide, fully fit into the slide without stretching or squishing the picture. So that's why it's covering up everything. So all we have to do is just resize it. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to grab the corner little handle again, and I'm just going to kind of shrink it down to a smaller size. Go down to, doesn't really matter, size it however you want. And then I can click and drag it and move it around. And now you notice that as I'm moving this picture around, I'm also getting those guidelines again. The guidelines are one of the best parts of a PowerPoint, I feel, when you're trying to figure out the layout of your images. Now, before, we only saw that there were guidelines when we were like with the slide itself. There was the center of the slide, either top or bottom or left to right. There was the center. But now we also have some guides with the other picture that's on the that's on our slide. So PowerPoint has the capability of what they call a snap to function. So what that'll do is, you notice that if I move this over here closer to the edge of the image, all of a sudden it will, like, see how it almost jumped over to the to brush up against the image there. So what that snap to does is it allows you to actually easily kind of snap things up. And then I have to move, if I wanted to move this and have it overlapping, but it makes it kind of easy to prevent that happening because it stops. And then I have to continue moving it to overlap. So if you don't want things overlapping, it does things to kind of help prevent that happening. But like if I do things like, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so here's another really cool, and I wish I had a second mouse to be able to kind of show how this is working. But if you notice, down at the bottom, actually, my cam. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, so now you notice at the bottom right corner, or the bottom corners of the image, there's a little like orange arrow pointing back and forth there. So what that's telling me now, that's another guide that's useful for putting in the layout. That's telling me now that the second image, the image that I'm currently moving, is the same distance away from the right edge of the slide as my first image is from the left image of the slide. So what it's saying is those are equal distances. So between, so the space here is equal to the space over here. This also happens, let's see if I can get it to happen here. It's kind of neat. Come on. It's kind of, it happens, this can also happen to the center line as well. There we go. Okay, there we go. Let me get this here. Okay. Sorry, I had to do a little fiddling to kind of make the show up there and such. But now there's also this guide here that shows that now my second image over here is as far away from the center as the first image is from the center. So there are great ways to kind of line up to make sure that, okay, so now in this space here, this is exactly an even space. Like halfway through the slide, I have exactly the same space on this side as over here. So this is now a little bit closer. And so I kind of prefer to have that same like margins on the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this to here where I get that little distance marker. Let me show you there so we can see that little distance marker that shows that it matches the same one as the other one. And I'm just going to put this down here. I know my camera is kind of blocking it a bit. Also, you notice if I move this down to here, you notice there's now a line connecting the bottoms of the of my two images. It will also show up here on the top. And what that does is that tells me that the tops of my images are aligned to each other. make this a little bit bigger again. We're going to go down, and I want to align this with the bottom of the image down there, or you can see like the top of the image here aligns with the center of the other image. So you get all of these useful guidelines, guides as you're working, as you're moving objects around PowerPoint to line things up better with other objects. It's just a lot of time just to show you that there. What I want to do is I want to line this up with the bottom of the image, and then I'm going to move it over to the right. What I'll do is I'll move it over to the right. So you can see now that I'm moving it so that it's the same. I have like the same margin on my right side as I do on my left side. Then I'm going to move it down and make it line up with the bottom edge of the other picture. So that's been a lot of description to kind of get to this point here. So we have these two images kind of lined up, kind of neatly arranged where they have the same space on the left and the right, and the bottoms are all lined up there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and we're going to add in text box. We want to have some text. We could just have this slide that just has these pictures of the Washington Monument, but instead what we're going to do now is, hold on, before I move on and show the text box, I'm going to give you all the opportunity to go in, insert picture 1, picture 2, arrange them, get them lined up the way that you want, play around with the guidelines. Do about 4 minutes, and we will get, if you have any questions in the chat. So, working on doing the exercise of getting these two pictures lined up. This is actually going to be exercises 5, 6, 7, 8 in sizes on the handout. Let me know if you may notice while you're watching the stream why I seem like I'm always looking up to the left and right kind of up sides of the monitors. I actually have two monitors up there. One of them on the side here is showing the stream, so my preview and the chat on there, and then the other one is showing my streaming software. I'm just kind of making sure that everything is kind of looking. That's why you kind of see me kind of looking up from the camera at you there, up to the corners of the screen, just so you don't think I'm kind of like looking around strangely. Just that I have two monitors mounted. That's what's happening. Okay, so we have now gone and put in a couple of images, PowerPoint slide here. So now let's actually add some text on there. And in order to do that, we're going to come here to the Insert tab. Again, we're inserting in text. And over here on the right, there is, under the text category and such, there is a text box. So we're going to click on that. And what the text box is going to do actually now is it's going to give us, we can actually click and drag the size of a box. So you start up in kind of the top left corner. You click where you want the top corner to go, and you click and drag down to the bottom right. And it creates this box here. You don't have to be too fancy with this. Remember, in PowerPoint, you can move anything at any. So this doesn't have to be exactly in the right place. It doesn't have to be exactly the right size when you first create it. Just create something that you can go in and type in something and then play around with getting the size and the placement after you have your content in. It's hard to kind of figure out the size of that box and where it should be until you actually have some text in. In this case, I'm going to actually type in Washington. This is the Washington Monument. Now I can see I have my box is a lot wider than it needs to be, so I can actually go in and shrink it a little bit smaller. Whoops. I don't want to shrink it too small where it goes down to 2 lines. I want to keep everything on 1 line, so I make sure that it goes onto 1 line. And then I can kind of move it around. And you notice as I move this around, I get the same guidelines that I had when I was. So I can line this up the side of that image over there. I can line it up with the side of the image here. I can line it up with the center. I can make it centered in the middle of everything. I can make it centered. This here kind of lines up nicely either with the center or with the top there. Or what this does is this kind of gives me a little like buffer space or padding in text and sure. So what we're going to do now is line it with the center of the slide and second. Okay. There. Okay, and so once you also have your text in place, what you can do actually is if I go in, just like when we're working with Microsoft Word and we're able to change the formatting in Microsoft Word, I can highlight my text and I can change the font. I'm going to recommend against changing the actual font because if you change the actual font from something, say, different than your font in the first one, when you start playing with it, when you start changing the designs, when we start changing the design later on, the font is tied to the design. And if I set this to be a custom font right now, if I go and change this from Calibri to Times New Roman, for example, it will stay as Times New Roman even as all my other fonts change based on the design that I choose. So my recommendation is don't change the actual font that it's using, but you can change things like the size. So we have our different size things. Again, just like in Microsoft Word, this is the exact same kind of size functions. I go in and make this say a 4. Now you'll notice that my box, I had shrunk my box left to right to kind of make everything on 1 line, and now I've made it a little too small. So I can actually just resize it so that everything goes back to being 1 line. Now, what I'm going to do is find a good place. We're going to line that up on the top there and just align. Good. Like this. How about that? There we go. So if I line this, so what I'm doing is now I'm lining up my text to the top edge of my left picture, and then the center of the text to the left edge over here. Just kind of lining everything up kind of neatly. But you can see actually those same guides that we use to arrange pictures can also be used to arrange the text. So I am now actually going to give you a little bit of time after we've put in some text that we're going to go put in the text on your slide here for the Washington Monument, and then go and make another 2 to 3 slides. Put in 1 or 2 pictures, put in some text on the different slides, play around with arrangements, play around with the size of your images, play around with those guides. So practice arranging the images in text boxes. See what kind of different guides and snap-tos points show up. I'm going to give about, say, another 5 minutes for this. Need more time while you're working. I'm going to give kind of 5 minutes. Let's see if everybody's ready. If you need time, post in the chat that there. But we'll do about 5 minutes. Go and kind of make your own slides. So to walk over that process quickly, you're going to come up here to new slide, come down, click new slide, the bottom part in new slide. Go down and click blank. You're going to create a new blank slide, and then we're going to insert in pictures and text boxes into the new slide. So if you have any questions, please ask in the chat. I'm going to work on creating a couple more slides myself. So you can always come back here and see how I'm working and kind of doing things. But yeah, get to work in about 5 minutes. I'll see if people need more time after that. Feel free as you're working to put whatever descriptions that you want. They don't have to be accurate. Just have kind of fun with the text. I happen to know what these pictures are, so I can put more accurate descriptions. Okay, so this wait about 30 seconds, see if there's with the next steps. Okay, so it seems like people time posting like, but you should have 2 to 3. I've actually ended up making 4 slides here, 5 total. But you should have 2 to 3 slides with some content in. The main purpose is just to have some more slides as we start playing around with things like. So the next thing that we're going to look at now, we're going to look at design of slides. Now you can do design on individual basis. Design each different slide. You can change the color, you can change the text. But by doing something like that there, you're going to kind of disrupt the consistency of your slideshow. You kind of want to make sure that as you're presenting a slideshow, things remain the same. So you're using the same font, you're using Flash. You want things to kind of, everything kind of all to be good word. So to that end, PowerPoint has put in what they call design themes. These are available in the design tab up here. If you're using an older version of Office and you don't have a design tab, please that and I'll figure out where it is in there that you need slide designs. I think they're actually available on the home. But I'd have to go check it again. It's been a while since I've used it. So in the design tab here, you can see the in the ribbon here, the lion's share of the ribbon here is selected by these different themes. And if I go, and part of the interface again is that I can actually see this one line of themes here. But if I look over here on the right on there, that there is actually like a couple of different navigation buttons here. So this middle button here tells me that this is row 1 of 4. And so I can actually scroll through the different rows to see kind of all the different themes that are available. Now, I tend to find looking at it row by row is a little tedious, not exactly what I'm looking for. Bottom button here, this expands them all out so that you can kind of see them all next to each other and tells you, this is what your current slide theme is. And then you can go through and, but this way you can actually go through and select, see what they all like and select the one that you want. Some other features that show up also in this more here is there's browse for themes, which allows you to go online, get some more themes for your slides. Also save current, go through and you actually do design. You can design a single slide and design like the background color and where the background images go and what font you're using, what font color they are. And if you do your own design there, you can actually then go and you can save that design as a new theme, which you can then use for future presentations. In this case, we are just going to use actually one of the built-in themes PowerPoint has. And one of the nice things is as I go through and put my mouse over the different themes, you can see in the background, behind the menu there, that my slide is actually changing, giving me a preview of what that theme looks like. So I can actually get a good sense as I'm going through finding something that may work well for the presentation that I'm. Now, if you notice, the theme changes things like the color of the font, the color of the background. There's a design in the background. It also changes the font itself. So that's why I didn't want you to actually change the font. You're looking at the different font options, because if you had set a font in one of the earlier text boxes that we had entered, it would stay as that font that you set, which would then be different than all these changed. Kind of nice. I kind of like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this theme here. And you can actually see now that I've selected this theme here, I can actually start seeing, this is why I wanted to put the place before I put in the theme, because you can see certain things have been affected or changed. Like if I go back to my first slide, remember how when we first created our first slide, the title was up here and then there was the subtitle underneath. Well, now this design, this theme design changes where the title is and where the subtitle is. And because it changed the font and the size of the font, you can now see actually that my title here actually runs off the edge of the slide. So this is why it's good. I mean, in some ways, I could have avoided this here if I had chosen the design before I had done the theme. But in any case, this is allowing me to go in and kind of correct some of the stuff. And so I think the big thing I just need to do here is I just need small. There we go. So now it's fit into the size of the box that it has there. It still kind of stands out. I really like the coloration and how this all works on there. And I can go look at my other slides. These ones here, I mean, I had this on one line before, so I just need a little longer to kind of make that go back to another. This actually did not get affected at all, which was really good. This one here did get affected. I need this, and then kind of make sure this is centered again. Get everything kind of lined up back to where I want it to go. And this one here is all the same there. So you choose a theme. Go back to my design tab. And if I had chosen another theme, other things may have been kind of messed up or kind of in different places. But for the most part, because I have all the content here, I get a good sense of how this theme plays around with the stuff that I have. Now, when you're working with the theme, you are not just bound with what the theme looks like here. Notice right to the right of our themes, there's this other section that says variants. And so if I click on this, so there's only one row. You can see these two buttons here are grayed out. There is actually one row. There's 4 different variants that Microsoft Office has for this theme. So if I didn't like this like blue, this bluish color, but if I didn't like this bluish color, I could decide to go with kind of purple. If I click on that there, you can kind of see now it changed all of my, like here, this went from that kind of bluish. If I go here, you can kind of see how that changes to blue. Well, there, so it changes the font colors. It changes the color of the background. I could go with the gray and see how that looks. Orange. Actually, all of these look. This is a very attractive looking thing. But suppose what happens is suppose I say I like this blue background, but suppose I want to make my own tweaks. I can do that there by going to this variants, the more under the variants here, and I'm going to get this little menu of 4 different. And if we go under colors, you can see there's a whole set of color schemes. Now, if I come down here to the very bottom where it says customize colors, I could choose my own specific colors for it. But I do recommend, especially when you're just starting off and you're just doing things with like playing around with design and kind of making sure that everything looks the way that you want it to do, stick with these color schemes that they have here, because these are been designed by Microsoft to be complementary colors to each other. What they'll do is there'll be a bunch of colors that they kind of work with each other instead of being clashing or kind of blending in, because you also want to make sure that things remain. Like if I wanted to, I can go down and check. You can see the only thing that's really changing as I'm moving around to different things is the subtitle, a photo essay by Skornia. That's the only thing that's really kind of changing with these colors, because everything else is just this same solid color that's. But you can change the color. You can change the fonts there. So for example, if I wanted to have different fonts be in my presentation, I can go here and I can choose which font that is being used. And this is again is why we did not want to change the font for a single text, because if we did that, that box would stay whatever font we set it as, unless there's a very specific reason why you want it to be that font. This way here will change the font for all of the slides. So if I go down and say something like this, you can see that changed the font on all the different slides. Actually, Times New Roman, big Times New Roman. Times New all sans serif. Okay, I'm getting off track here. Getting off track. Sorry about that. I'll choose it. This is changing the font of everything. You can see now, like this one here used to be on one line. Now I have to again. So again, you have to kind of constantly go back and constantly be tweaking kind of the areas that you're working with to make sure that everything looks the same. The other thing that we can kind of change here too is we can change the background style. So you can kind of see I can change this within a set of colors. I go to like purple here and go to the background styles. I can again choose a set of fixed colors, or I could go in and choose my own color that I want. But I'm going to actually stick with it. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to go off and change the design of your presentation. Choose some of the variants, go into the more and play around with the fonts and colors, just kind of see what changes in the presentation that you put together. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat. I'll be right back briefly, but feel free to ask the questions and I'll get back to them back. apologize for that. They just took care of it. Hope everyone spent some together. They applied and kind of playing around with the designs. The final thing that we're going to look at for today's class is we're going to look at actually. So now you've built presenting your slideshow. So now that we've built and put together a presentation here in PowerPoint, we are going to look at kind of what happens when you actually want to start presenting. That's really kind of the point, is you putting together a presentation to be able to share with somebody else through sort of presentation software, presentation, lecture. So a couple things that first thing that we're going to do is we've been doing this from the beginning, is we're going to save our PowerPoint presentation. Do that there by coming up here to the File menu, which takes us back to our Backstage View. Remember the Backstage View. And now you'll notice also that we have a little bit more options over here in our Backstage View. We have the info, which gives us some information about the file that we're looking on here. So we can do things like put protection on there to make sure that people aren't able to make changes, version history. But over here, there's some properties. So things like telling us, oh, this hasn't been saved yet. Our bad on that. The number of slides that it has, whether we have hidden slides, the titles, organization kind of things, who the author is. And we also have our save and print. Unlike Excel, but like Word, PowerPoint prints really nicely. There's a lot of different options for printing. This is something I'll probably cover in next class, but for right now, we're just going to focus here on save. And so when I click save, just like with other Microsoft Office programs, the first time that I go to save, it always comes in as a save as, because it doesn't have a location. You need to choose where you're going to save it and the file name that you're going to give it there. So right now, by default, it's going to my Documents folder here. I can choose a different place to save by coming down here to Browse and getting my typical Save As File Explorer window. So I'm just going to save this in my Documents. I'm not going to give it anything else. I'm going to give it a file name. It automatically chooses the title that we put in there at the beginning. If you want that to keep that, that's fine. That's what we're going to do here, but you can always change it. You can whatever information, change it to whatever you do to kind of for whatever your work process is. We're just going to leave it as my trip to Washington, and I'm going to click save. So now you'll notice when up here at the very top of the window, where the title is, now there is a title there. Instead of just saying presentation 1, it now says my trip to Washington DC.ppx. This .ppx is the file extension. This is what tells Windows what type of file this is and what program to open it up with. pptx is your standard PowerPoint. And then X has been the kind of the addition they've added to that extension since Office 2007, when they updated all the file formats. Prior to that, it was just a .ppt file. Now it's a pptx. So if somebody sends you a PowerPoint file that says .ppt, it will open up in PowerPoint, no problem. That's just an older file format. If somebody sends it to you in PowerPoint or pptx, then you need to open it up in Office 2007 or which at this point shouldn't be that difficult. Nobody should be running earlier versions of Office at this point anyway. It'll also, my computer also tells me this is saved to this PC instead of it being locally like stored online or anything there. It just tells me, hey, this has been saved. If I make any changes, this little save to this PC will disappear. Like if I go in and this, you can see that change that disappears. It tells me, okay, there's been a change. It hasn't been saved yet. We'll put it in. So now that we've saved our PowerPoint presentation, we are now going to go and do our presentation. So suppose we're at whatever venue or whatever place we're going to do our presentation. We load it up on the computers. We double click on the file. It opens up in PowerPoint just like this. And now we're connected to the projector, so it's showing up on the screen. And you notice that we're still seeing all of the PowerPoint interface all around us. We're still seeing the title bar. We're still seeing all of our slides. That's not how we want the PowerPoint. What we're going to do is we're going to go here to the slideshow tab on our ribbon right over here. I'm going to click slideshow. And in slideshow, this is where we're able to kind of set up how this gets presented when it gets set to the there's a lot of different tools here that we're going to look at that some of them we're going to look at a bit in this class and the intermediate class, particularly this presenter view, which right now I have turned off. Simply because it kind of plays havoc with the way I have it on the computer here right now. But most cases, you're gonna plug in you're gonna open up the presentation on the computer connected to the projector, and you're gonna come here to slideshow, and then we're gonna come here to this top left button here that says from beginning. And so what this does is this is gonna start playing the slideshow from the beginning. If I go from current slides, so if I have like 15, 16, 17 slides, and I've been kind of working on something in the middle, like I've been working at slides like 9 or 10, I don't have to go from the beginning. I could actually like start from 9 to 10 to see how they work. Our slideshow here is very basic. There's not a lot of frills or bells and whistles going on with it. It's just a bunch of text and images kind of put in. But you can start adding in things like animations and transitions to make the PowerPoint a little complicated. And that's where you'll want to start things from different slides to see how going from one slide to another, how it looks and how it plays. That's something that we're going to be looking at next week during the intermediate class. The intermediate class is going to cover animations and transitions. But for right now, we just want to do the basics. We just want to play our slideshow. We're going to come up here. We're going to click this top left button that says from beginning. And what this will do now is it will just open up. It will get rid of all of the PowerPoint interface all around and just leave us with a full screen version of what our slideshow is. Once you're in the slideshow, you can navigate through slides in a bunch of different ways. The easiest and most straightforward, because most people what they're going to do is they're going to start their slideshow. Here we are on our title screen at the beginning, and they're going to go slide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to go from beginning to end. The easiest way to do that there is just click with the left mouse button on your mouse. One click takes you to another slide. The next click takes you to the slide. Third click, or the next click. Just clicking takes you through. This is why like presentation remotes work the way that they do. Because the presentation remote, the little like forward and back buttons on the forward button and such is kind of similar to a mouse click. It just moves it forward. Now, as I move my mouse, if you look down in the bottom left corner, actually, I'm going to Ferguson Library. The logo was in a good place until I got to move it over here. But if I move my mouse on here, back here and such, you'll see that I get this little like translucent. It's translucent because you can almost see through most of it down here in the bottom left. So way down here, little toolbar of different tools that are available. And the left two, we have a left and a right pointing arrow. These allow you to go forward and back on your slide. So this is the other way to kind of navigate through your presentation is by clicking these little toolbar buttons down there. I'm not going to really go into what these other tools do because those are kind of a little bit more advanced there and such, but for right now we just want the basic navigation with the forward and back. Finally, the other way that the third way that you can actually navigate your presentation is by using the arrow keys on your keyboard. So if you look down at your keyboard, you're going to have a set of 4 arrow keys. You're going to have up, down, left, and right. If you hit the left and right keys, they're going to go forward and back presentation. And so one of the things I'm looking as I'm going through the different slides, one of the things I probably would have done is you can see on this slide here, I have the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum across the top. I may have wanted to do something similar to all the other ones so that as I'm scrolling through, I get like a consistent kind of title in the same place on all of the top there. But what can you do? This is how I designed this here on the fly. Those are things to kind of tweak and play around with. But yeah, the left and right arrow buttons on your keyboard will also navigate through your slide. And when you get to the end of the slide, you get this black screen that says end of slideshow. Click it. Finally, the last way to kind of navigate and kind of deal with when you're in slideshow view, this is slideshow view, is if you right click with the mouse, you're going to get a right click menu. So you get things like a next and previous here. There's an option to see all slides. So if you open this up, you'll be able to see all of your slides. And so this is a way that if you're doing a presentation and suppose you have a presentation that you've maybe accidentally clicked a couple too many times, or somebody hit a button, something happened that all of a sudden now you're not where you want to be. Instead of trying to go back or forward, trying to find where you're looking to be, because that can be kind of, I mean, you're already kind of nervous because you're presenting in front of a bunch of people. It can be kind of frustrating to try to find and kind of get back onto pace where you're supposed to be. So one of the easiest things to do, and at this point, everybody is familiar with people doing presentations, that if they see somebody do this here and such, they'll understand what's going on. Is you can right click, you can go to see all slides, and then you can jump back. You can click on, so if I go to see all slides and I want to go back to slide 2, I can click on slide 2 and it will jump me back to that place. So it's just an easy way, instead of having to go forward and back through all the slides, jump back to a place that you wanted. Or if you're, say, making a presentation and you want to go back and recap something that may have happened 4, 5, 6, 15 slides ago, you can go see all slides and you jump back or forward to that point and kind of recap, and then you can go back to where actually what happens is there's actually this nifty, if I right click and go to last viewed, it will then jump you back to the place that you were before. So if you wanted to recap, you can see all slides, click back to where you want to go, and then when you're all done, you can then go last viewed and it will jump you back to where you go. So the right click menu also gives you some navigation tools there. There's also some of these other kind of fancy things which we'll cover in class, but not today. So that is slideshow. Once I'm in the slideshow, how do I get out of it? Be able to go back to maybe changes or when the easiest way is to go to the end, so you get this black screen, and then you click to exit. Otherwise, you can also right click and just go to end show on click. The final way, because there's always multiple ways to get out of and do things, you can hit the escape button on your keyboard. The top left corner of your keyboard is the escape button. You can hit that and that will close out of the. So are there any questions about using the basic slideshow function in PowerPoint? There's a lot more that you can do in PowerPoint with the slideshows, but it's kind of beyond the scope of what we're covering in this basic class. The reason I'm pausing, I'm just for this. That delay is a. All right, so it seems to be good. Okay, so to wrap things up for this class here, one of the things that I want to kind of make aware to you is that the library does provide access to. If you want to continue your learning in PowerPoint after this class, before next class, or even after next class, you can visit lynda.com. And if you look at the second page of your handout, down near the bottom, there's a section that says Further Study and Practice. And it has information on how to access lynda.com. There's this address here, this lynda.com/portal/patron, yada, yada, yada there. You'll want to go to this address here or click the link from the Ferguson website. Because by doing that there, it will show you. If you go to this link here, hold on. Again, right browser window. It'll take you here, and then I'll just ask for library card number and your sign in. If you don't know your PIN, by default, it's going to be 4 9s if you've never before. If you have changed it and you don't know what it is, there is a PIN login or a PIN reset on our website, or and you can always ask us on the live chat or by email how to change your PIN, and we'll let you know. Once you're at lynda.com, if you look up in the library, there is a ton of different kind of learning topics that it teaches. It's the video lessons, video online lessons that allow you to walk through different skills. You can do keyword searches, so it's available for, like, if you just wanted either to learn something new or as a reference to refresh what you like. For example, if you needed to remember how to insert a text box into PowerPoint, you can go in and do a search for PowerPoint box. And what it'll do is it will give you like a bunch of different areas. You'd have to kind of maybe browse through, but it'll kind of give you a bunch of different areas about where you can go. And here we go. Here's like working with text boxes. Instead of having to watch the full 3-hour video learning PowerPoint 2010, go here and click this working with text box for 5 minutes and 4 seconds. It'll kind of give you a reference. out. So it's good as a learning tool as well as a fresh and reference for using different Microsoft Office tools. Coming up on our schedule next week, we are doing 3 more classes here at the Ferguson Library YouTube channel. This week we have done the basic classes for Office. Next week we're going to be looking at the intermediate. So we're going to be looking at Tuesday. We're going to be looking at Word at April 7th, 2 to 4. On Wednesday, April 8th, I'll be doing intermediate Excel, and then Thursday, April 9th, I'll be doing intermediate Microsoft PowerPoint. Following week, we'll be doing advanced Microsoft Word, and then Microsoft Office Integrated is my class that I teach, where we use Microsoft Excel, PowerPoint, and Word all together. Basically, tools that allow them to kind of work all together as a singular like Microsoft Office suite. And then finally, on April 21st, finally on this current schedule, on April 21st, I'll be doing a Introduction to Web Building HTML and CSS class. Now, as we go, if you enjoyed this class and you participate along the way, I do encourage you to go and our patron satisfaction survey at the address here, projectout.org/responses/50593. This is also available on the online technology class here under PowerPoint. It's under the survey link here. So if you go here and just click survey link, that will take you. So with that, this has been Microsoft Office. All right, so I'm not seeing any chat. Very much for attending. Fill out the survey and